Conversations that matter. We spoke with a range of people from different organisations and groups within Sheffield to find out what is important to women in Sheffield's LGBT community. We spoke with the following organisations: LGBT Sheffield 50+. LGBT Sheffield 50+ is a social group for lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans people in Sheffield aged 50 and over.
I'm the chair of LGBT Sheffield, and we've come together, we've joined forces with Sheffield 50+ to form a group for LGBT 50+ people, the community in Sheffield.
We set up the LGBT at Sheffield 50+ for that community to meet in a safe place. We provide information, advice, and obviously want to hear the concerns and opinions of that community in Sheffield.
What is a safe, inclusive and informal fortnightly drop-in for lesbian, bisexual and trans women aged 25 and over?
We're a women's centre and there's no provision for women over 25, and I figured that being a women's centre, we needed to do something about it. Hence what was born.
Just got involved with the what group because there's just nothing for women sort of over 25 once you've got out of that youth group age.
LGBT Committee at Sheffield Students' Union. They provide support, information and social facilities for lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans people, aimed primarily at the student population.
The University of Sheffield has an LGBT committee, which we run a lot of events, we run campaigns, and we also have free welfare officers. They're just there if people have any problems that they want to speak to us about.
It's having that representation within the university, because as a minority group, I think it's very easy for LGBT people to get sidelined.
We were commissioned by the Sheffield City Council as part of the Equality Hub network to conduct a consultation researching into the contributions of the LGBT community with a specific aim to find out what women in Sheffield's LGBT community want and need. The Equality Hub network is a network made up of the following equality hubs based on protected characteristics under the Equality Act 2010. We spoke with Rachel Sanchez, the Development Officer from the Sheffield City Council, regarding the importance of this consultation.
My role as the Development Officer is to support the Equality Hub network, so working with organisations and individuals who might not be part of a group or an organisation to get involved in the network, which its purpose is to strengthen the voice and influence of underrepresented communities. The Council is here to serve the people of Sheffield, so it's really important to know what issues and barriers there are to participation and services, access to services. So consultation is really important. We're hoping to find out what those burning issues are and what to do about them, see if we can get people working together with us and other partners to, like I said, to make things fair and better in Sheffield for LGBT women and everyone, really.
During the conversations, we asked several questions. Question 1. What issues do you think are particularly pressing for the LGBT community right now in Sheffield?
I moved to Sheffield just over a year ago, and I'm newly out as a lesbian woman, and I was looking for somewhere to go, and there wasn't anything. I'd been sort of on the internet Googling for probably 3 or 4 months, and I came along to the Together Women's Centre, met Nicola, and that's when she said to me about the group and everything, and I started coming along. For me, it's been a real sort of godsend, because otherwise there's nowhere for me to go.
There's always issues with homophobia or transphobia or biphobia.
I suppose there's issues around coming out and sort of how people would go about that, and maybe how their peer group might respond to that. I think that's quite a big part, especially for young people.
Absolutely, definitely. The top one is loneliness, I think, because The reason I thought of this was because I myself am 60, my partner's 55, and I'm thinking my partner's got lots of health issues, and I thought if anything happens to her before me, where do I go? How do I meet like-minded people?
You don't stop being LGBT once you reach a certain age, and there's a whole, you know, groups of people who are just sort of falling off the edge and not being recognised.
I would hate to think that after coming out now at my age, that I would have to go back in again because I'm going into a care home and my needs aren't being met there. So it is important.
For people who aren't in the community, like a lot of the things that we talk about on a daily basis, like people haven't even heard of. Like I've been surprised how many people I meet who don't even know what LGBT stands for. Because
the social spaces are so centred around the scene. So there's drug and alcohol issues, there's the fact that obviously the scene isn't welcoming necessarily for certain age groups or families or religious backgrounds or that. So your social space either doesn't exist, or if it does, it's entirely centred around drinking, which isn't, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a night out, but, you know, in terms of being a support space and a safe space and everything else, if the only place you've got is a bar, then that's not necessarily particularly healthy. So groups like this are, I think, really important.
Been bi for, well, since the early 20s, so that's 2 decades on. And then when I moved to Sheffield about over a decade ago, I didn't find anywhere that would accept me, and this place does.
There's not a law that protects the trans community unless they are transsexual and have kind of been involved in the medical procedures of a sex change. So there's a lot of people who identify as, if they're like a trans woman, identify as female, but they're not actually protected if they go into a female toilet in a pub or bar, and that's something that we'd like to change. We're kind of working on a trans policy to suggest to pubs and clubs, but something that we've heard back from a lot of the pubs is that they don't have money to kind of ensure that that's not abused.
Personally, for myself, I think one of the main gaps there is that I can see is any provision for LGBT towards mental health issues, because I have mental health issues that aren't related to my being a gay woman, but being a gay woman causes an extra dimension to it, and, you know, different ways of looking at things and everything. And I don't think there's anything in Sheffield for LGBT regarding mental health, and I think that's a real shame. I think it is something that needs to be addressed.
I'd agree with you there. Yeah, because I've got mental health issues too, as well as other stuff. So I think we definitely need something.
You know, sometimes it could be the fact that women are coming in, you know, they might have had families already, or they come in, you know, this might be the first same-sex relationship, and there is a lot of different issues, and it's about not adopting that kind of one-size-fits-all, and somebody coming out who's 16 at college is far different from a woman in her 30s coming out, and I think it's, you know, it's just, I think it's something we've not really explored yet, because there's no provision. I am not saying at all that the what group is a be-all and end-all, far from it, but I think it's a start of recognising that actually there is some further work to be done with that age group, because unfortunately a lot of people fall through that, and that's obviously when mental health, you know, kicks in and other coping mechanisms. So yeah, that's a good point.
Question 2. Do you think that there are any issues particularly affecting women in the LGBT community in Sheffield?
We have technically equal footing, I would say, just about legally. And I think a lot of people are sort of like, what are you complaining about? Nothing's wrong. You can get married. It's fine. You know, you can be transgender if you want. There's workplace policies protecting you. And I think like it makes people really complacent. The way people have become over time with women's rights and stuff like that, it belittles people's issues, I think. So like, whereas culturally there's still a lot of prejudice and there's still a lot of problems, and we live in like a very heteronormative society with really rigid gender roles, and I think people get really complacent about that because of the legal footing being more equal than it was.
I do think it's harder for a gay woman to walk in the bar and get to know people, because if you're a woman on your own walking in a bar, you are more vulnerable. And people, I mean, I came in this bar tonight, people looked around and thought, oh, is that there? There's lots more men in a gay bar than there is in a straight bar. And if somebody at 50 plus or was straight went into a bar, she probably wouldn't stand out more. But to walk into a gay bar, which is predominantly men, for a 50 plus woman, she would get looked at because she'd feel out of place. I mean, I feel out of place when I go into a gay bar because they're all young people.
One of the problems I've experienced is that in clubs, if you were to go out on a night out and you were to kiss a girl in a club, you'd immediately probably get several guys asking if you want a threesome, kind of making quite derogatory comments, really sexualising the whole thing. So I think that's quite a big problem for LGBT women.
When I was first going out, your scene was all based up at Attercliffe, and you sort of spent your time sort of in dodgy dark back streets on an industrial estate to sort of find anywhere. And, you know, we have improved by stuff being in the city centre now and being more visible and more accessible, but it's still, you know, it's very male orientated still. Yeah. It's very, you know, it's majority a certain age range, and, you know, so it's not necessarily welcoming to women or older people, you know, so it's improved, but I think it's still got a long way to go.
I only own 2 pairs of trousers, so when I go out, I'm invariably wearing a skirt or a dress, and almost every time I go out in Sheffield on the LGBT scene, people comment on what I'm wearing, and they assume that I'm either straight or not gay enough, and yeah, I find that's quite difficult. I mean, I suppose because it happens so much, I don't see it as much of an issue now, but I don't think that I should accept people not accepting me. I don't think that's right. There is a very clear difference between events that we have organised and events that, you know, that things that aren't organised by the university. I really feel, I suppose maybe it's not as safe. I don't know why that is.
I found it hard growing up as, I don't like the word lesbian, but we'll deal with that. There was always somebody there ready to have a go. And that's all I've known through being a lesbian most of my life. I can't even now go to Meadowhall and go to the toilet without somebody saying, you're in the wrong toilet.
The issues I see for LGBT women are around educational attainment and employment progression, especially. Being a woman, you can sometimes be discriminated against, and those opportunities that are available to men aren't always available to women, so there's a bit of those barriers, a glass ceiling, if you will. But then you have the second characteristic of being gay, then some people, well, you might not be able to be out, you might not work in a supportive work environment, and therefore that can hold you back, or you might feel like you have to, I don't know, act a certain way or be a certain way that's not really your style.
Even though I said the bars weren't necessarily the perfect place, you've sort of got this gap from going past your sort of clubbing years, or so to speak, and then there's a group of sort of quite well organised older women from back in the Women's Cultural Centre days who seem to still have a reasonably good network with sort of book clubs and dog walking groups and things, and then there just seemed to be this complete sort of void of any sort of social space, support space. So I think that sort of isolation, and you do have different issues, people have different issues with sort of work and families and things than you necessarily have when you are younger. So, you know, it is a different need that you'd have at that age.
Question 3. Alongside standard meetings, would you have any other suggestions for methods the council could use to engage with the LGBT community?
I think they'd be more than welcome to come to our meetings that we have weekly on a Tuesday. I suppose it's seeing things from a different perspective. And I suppose if they did attend one of our meetings, they could see if they did have a role in our committees. It's just forging those links, I suppose, because we are quite separate from the wider community at the moment. It's it's quite easy to get caught up in a bit of a student bubble.
Majority of people are using Facebook, Twitter, you know, surveys, actually being a bit more involved. Like people, it's all, I think sometimes what can happen is that we expect people to come and tell us what needs to happen or what you want. And it's about people not feeling comfortable and knowing that. So, you know, using things you feel comfortable, email, have a, you know, why can't you have an electronic suggestion box or something like that? I think it's, like I say, about utilising what's trending now, if you like.
Going to meetings, if you're not in that environment, is quite intimidating. And if you're not used to speaking out and everything, you're not going to get your voice heard. But if there was something like Nicola suggested, like on Facebook and Twitter and that is easy for you to communicate with, that would be so much better and so much easier for you to do.
Online is always a pretty easy kind of way of doing things. If there's any, if they make some kind of maybe like some online form and send it out to Hallam LGBT group and Uni of Sheffield LGBT group, because you know, you can do that whenever you want. You can do that at home, like whenever you've got time, so you don't have to attend an event.
Question 4. Can you give examples of positive contributions the LGBT community has had in Sheffield?
I think one of the main positives is the new hubs that is come up with, and having the Women's Hub and the LGBT Hub and all the other hubs. I think that's really good.
Last year, the architecture department did a project about LGBT spaces in Sheffield, and I attended that, I think, in my role as a university student, and I thought that it was lovely to see that people from all over Sheffield, there were younger people and older people, and they were all like convening over something that was really, it was a productive sort of activity. I think they won an award for it, actually.
I think the committee's done really well in Sheffield. I mean, I got here about 2.5 years ago, and I just feel like the atmosphere towards the LGBT community, I feel like it's much more accepting to how it was where I live. And that's probably definitely in part down to the committee.
I think for me, one of the positive things that the entire community's brought is just the diversity. I know for me, being from being 16, which is not that long ago, but long enough, is the fact that just the opportunity to meet different people that I've had that's been life-changing.
Question 5. If there is one thing you could say to the council regarding issues affecting LGBT women in Sheffield, what would it be?
This is my biggest mission. LGBT Sheffield need a space within the city centre, a safe space, not a community centre, but a centre, a venue where any LGBT people can come and they know they're going to feel safe. They can report hate crimes, they come and get together, they meet people, they have a cup of coffee.
If council could help and give us somewhere to base, to become who we are, what we are, without having to fight anymore.
I think the one glaringly obvious thing is the fact that it's all geared around bars and alcohol. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not adverse to alcohol at all, but I think it's one of them things that over time, in terms of like, where's the cafe? Like a cafe, and actually it's not about necessarily going because somewhere's gay, it's going to feel comfortable where you can access gay literature, whether it's getting a magazine, watching a film, and, where you feel 100% comfortable. So if we're talking about need in a social space, so actually somebody who's not been out very long can go into a cafe that's saying, right, well, I'm having a cup of coffee and I feel comfortable reading Diva, for instance, if that's what you're into.
Coming out myself recently, it is a lot different to if I was coming out. My daughter's gay, and when she came out, she could click her fingers and someone round the corner, sort of, because the younger community's so big and they're out there. But for myself, unless you actually go looking for it and there's somewhere to go, you could probably go the rest of your life and not actually come across anyone of your own age who's in the same position as you. So I think it's them just realising how many of us are out there. And for them to say, look, we are here for you and there's somewhere for you to go. And like Heather said, you don't have to go to bars to go and drink to find it.
Education is really important. So young people from a really young age should always be educated about LGBT issues, because lack of education is the main source of prejudice, so that's the most important thing I would say.
Apart from that, just maybe working with some of the venues that younger people go to, and supporting maybe charities that are working with younger people. Like I know Say It, Sheena Amos Youth Trust do a lot of really great work with young people. Projects like that are really great as well, yeah.
I'd like to get the LGBT archives and not have to like sort of make an appointment with the library and go into some dusty basement and go, I think we've got a box round here somewhere. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, or some shelf in the main library might be nice, you know what I mean? It'd be like, you know, just little things, you know, that, you know, there are resources, but the few resources that we've got are that inaccessible.
When I first moved here, I went in the main library to look for the LGBT section, and I had spent hours hunting around the library, said to the woman about it, and she said, oh, it's sort of tucked away, but I'm not sure. She didn't even know where it was for certain.
Having a commitment to LGBT services and issues, I think it's about not reinventing wheel. I think it's about utilising who's out there, this wealth of experience and knowledge that people's got that's free. And also I think it's about, once you find something that works, it's about commitment in terms of time, but funding. And I know funding's an issue, and I know, you know, there's not a pot at end at rainbow, but I do think that's part of commitment. Things aren't going to happen from nothing, and I think that, you know, although people are committed, you know, we can't be naive to think that, you know, funding wouldn't make a massive difference.
In summary, we found that there was a need for more safe social space for women in the LGBT community. There were concerns that there is too much emphasis on alcohol and nightlife social activities in the LGBT community. Problems regarding loneliness in relation to age were raised, illustrating the importance of social space for the LGBT community. Social media and interactive methods of communication were suggested as additional methods for council engagement. It highlighted the positive contribution LGBT community groups have in Sheffield for creating an inclusive and fairer society. If you're interested in finding out more about the organisations that were featured within this film, you can contact them via the following contact information. LGBT Sheffield 50+ contact details are as follows. You can email them at chair@lgbtsheffield.co.uk or juliew@sheffield5-plus.org.uk. You can also ring them at 0114 253 6736. The What Group can be contacted via several methods. You can email them at sheffield@twpyandh.org.uk. You can give them a call at 0114 275 8282. You can call in and see them in person at the following address: Together Women's Centre, 106 Arundel Lane, Sheffield, S1 4RF. You can also connect with the What Group via Facebook. The LGBT Committee at Sheffield Students' Union can be contacted the following ways. You can email them at lgbt@sheffield.ac.uk, and you can also visit their website to find out more. If you would like to find out more about the Equality Hub Network, you can do so through the following ways. You can email the Equality Hub Network at equalitiesandinvolvement@sheffield.gov.uk. You can find out more about the Equality Hub Network at Sheffield City Council's website.